This video was probably one of the hardest videos that I've ever been asked to do because this video was going to be dealing with grief, especially when you've lost someone close to you. For those of you that's been following me for a while, you know that about a year or so ago, I lost my son. And then about 7 months ago, I lost my dad. And while both of these things hit you a little bit different, I have to admit that the pain, sometimes the hurt and the bitterness is sometimes still there, but we got to learn to live on. And so at the request of some of my subscribers who wanted a video based on how do you go through that process, how do you grieve, the time limit of grieving, and just knowing that you're not alone is sometimes good enough. But I am going to do this video and where I'm going to share with you what's known as the 5 level of grief, and then share with you how I went through many of the phases of the 5 level of grief, and hopefully sharing with you my journey and my struggles through this past year. It's now 2023, but just trying to get through 2022 was extremely hard. So hopefully my story, my journey, could help somebody go through their journey. So let's get into this video. It's important to note that the 5 level of grief is something that we all experience. And as I go through the 5 levels of grief, I want you to understand that not everybody goes through it in the way in which I'm going to articulate it here. I want you to know that it's a natural process. And for me to say, or anyone to say, that there's stages when it's time, no one can really tell you how long to go through each stage, or whether you go through one stage and never revisit the stage that you may thought you have passed. So understand that going through these levels of grief is only for informational purposes, and it kind of allows you and allowed me to really understand what it is. And I'm going to tell you, I've been in ministry, I've studied many different things from scripture to understanding grief counseling, but until you go through the process yourself, it's kind of hard to really articulate it. But because I've been there, done that, I hope again that this will help you to also get through. As I stated before, the stages of grief are not a natural response to loss. It's important to remember that everyone's experiences with grief differently, and there is no right or wrong way to go through it. It is also important to note that the stages of grief are not always linear, and it's common for people to experience them out of order or to revisit certain stages. The first level of grief is denial. This is the initial reaction to the news of loss. It's a way of protecting ourselves from the overwhelming emotions of the situation. It may be difficult to accept the reality of the loss, and we may find ways to deny it. I'm going to tell you, I think each individual, based on the relationship that they have with that individual, it hits them different. Losing your child hits a whole lot different than losing your parent. You feel different things. For me, it's the thought of being able to comfort his mother. A woman who lost her firstborn child, that's something that can't be phantom, something that words can't even begin to express. Versus the loss of my dad, my friend, the man who taught me how to be a man, who words just can't describe the man that he was. And I've always said, if I can be half the man he was, I'm gonna be an all right man. I knew my dad was passing, just didn't know the day or the time of the hour. But there was a sense of just getting that initial phone call from your mom. And that day I had 2 phone calls. One that said they're trying to revive him, and I was kind of confused over that first initial phone call. And 15 minutes later, my mom called to tell me he was gone. And I sat there just in disbelief. I just spoke to my dad within the last 4 days of his passing. I just couldn't fathom the feeling. I just couldn't do it. But I understood that was later one of the levels of grief, denial. You may feel denial. I don't know how you may react to it, but denial is part of the process of grieving. That's wanting not to believe what you're hearing and struggling to believe that the person you love and care about so much is gone. And that's part of the process of denial. Anger. As we begin to accept the reality of the loss, we may feel the rage of emotions, including anger. It's common to feel angry or anger towards the person who had died, towards ourselves, or towards the situation. It's important to allow ourselves to feel this emotion and not bottle it up. I have to admit that I was very angry. I think I was more angry at myself than I was at any individual. I was angry at myself because I wanted my dad to see where I was in this level of life, in this level of happiness, in my level of economic success and prosperity. You know, my dad been there for me through the military, through me having my first child and second child, and being married and going through the difficulties of marriage, and then the separation, and then the divorce. Took a dip down because of some social and financial situations, and then I rose up so high. My anger was that my dad never got to put his eyes on me and put his eyes on his success of his son, and that angered me. That anger would sometimes go back and forth from anger to sadness, but more in the area of anger. Now later on, I became angry at other things and other situations that took place, but I would have to say that my initial anger was more towards myself. And sometimes I still feel that anger, but I'm learning to walk through it. And you may be angry at maybe words that were said, or angry that they left you in a certain position, or just angry at the situations and circumstances that may be taking place. I don't know what your anger is or what you may be angry about, but understand that anger is a part of the grieving process, and just accept anger for what it is, a feeling, an emotion. And I don't know how long you're going to be angry. If I give you this Bible scripture, be angry, sin not. Just don't let your wrath go down before nightfall, and just understand that it's all part of the process. Let's go to the next one. Bargaining. During this stage, we may try to find ways to cope with the loss by making deals or bargaining with ourselves or a higher power. This may include thinking about what we could have done differently, or making promises for the future. This area of bargaining is pretty much a struggle. I won't say that I necessarily bargain, but I definitely would say that in certain situations, at least for the son, you never want to think about outliving your own child. And of course, as a parent, you bargain that you should have left before your child. You get angry, and that goes back to that upper level of anger. You know, maybe you're bargaining, maybe you're talking to God about different things, or bargaining with friends or other family members. If everybody really understands why you're bargaining, you're really going through levels of grief. Now, some of you may not bargain, some of you may not experience the first 3 levels of grief. But for those of you that's doing that, just know that's part of the process. It's just part of grief. Let's continue. Depression. As we continue to come to terms with the loss, we may experience feelings of sadness and despair. It's normal to feel a sense of emptiness and to have trouble finding joy in things that we used to enjoy. It's important to allow ourselves to feel these emotions and to seek support from friends and family if needed. You know, when my son passed away, I was just beginning to be a YouTuber. And you sit here and you're being a YouTuber and you're trying to make videos, and I have to admit that when my son passed away, I was given a lot of support from other content creators. Prayers and phone calls and relationships that was developed in around that time. And you know, that kind of relieves some of the pain and some of the pressure. And then you find out, you know, at least two of my content creators that we kind of knew each other from YouTube, but didn't even realize that we lived so close to each other, and they came and comforted us and been our friends ever since. And when it came to the passing of my dad, that too happened again. But I tell you, I really fell into a deeper depression in around November, mostly December. In November 11th would have been the Veterans Day, because I am a veteran, so I was saddened by Veterans Day. But it was also my mother's birthday, and this would have been the first year she would have had to been without my dad, and they was married for 56 years. So I was very sad and depressed for my mother. But November 11th was also the day my son passed. So I was just out of it. I just couldn't really sit here and try to make a video. I couldn't really sit here and do much. It was also a sad time because I tried to reach out to certain people just to talk, just to kind of grieve. And these people never returned my text message. They never returned my phone calls. They stopped talking to me. So I really felt depressed because I felt alone. I felt isolated. I just felt confused. And I know that we don't always know everybody on YouTube or people that has your personal number, but it really depressed me. It really saddens me that when I really needed help, when I really needed someone to lean on, someone to cry, just someone just to hear me just for the moment, they wasn't available. You know, as a man, I get so tired of women saying that we don't have emotions or feelings. We do. And it's even harder when you have to try to comfort everybody else, but when you cry out for comfort for yourself, it's kind of hard to find. And I'm gonna tell you, I struggled through that area of depression for over a month. Couldn't really sleep. Eating was okay, but it was the emoting, the lack of it. And I had to battle through that whole month of November, only to be smacked with December. My dad's birthday is December 21st. Then you got Christmas, and then you try to come into the new year. So for at least 2 months, I really fought hard, putting on a smile before the camera, but deep down inside, I was in deep pain, deep pain. Thank God, as a veteran in the United States Army, I was able to make a phone call just to talk to somebody. And I'll definitely leave you a telephone number if you need to talk to somebody. But depression is real. Doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's part of the grieving process. I don't wish anyone to feel alone as I had to feel alone. I made it through. I made it through. So let's continue with the last stages of grief. Acceptance. While it may take time to eventually we come to a place of acceptance, this does not mean that we are okay with the loss, but rather that we are able to live with it and find a new sense of normalcy. I don't know what normalcy is personally, but I do know that I have to continue to live my life. I have to continue to move on. I made a commitment to be a YouTuber, to be a content creator, and therefore, this is what I do. And so I have to move on. I have to make videos. I have to come up with content. I have to be able to serve you. That's what I came on to YouTube to do. That's what I came on to many different social platforms to do. I always say, help me help you. And because of subscriber did come in my comments and ask me how I made it through or how I'm getting through. I feel it's my obligation to try to help that individual and hopefully many other individuals. 5 levels of grief. So this was my attempt at writing a video, producing a video, and having a straight conversation with you about going through the 5 levels of grief. As I said before, each stage is not a linear, meaning it's not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can be 5, 4, 2, and 1. It can be 1, 4, 3. And there are some days where it might be 1, 2, and 3 all in the same day. But if I can say, if you're going through it right now, you can make it through. You're gonna have good days and you're gonna have bad days and you're gonna have up days. But if I can be an inspiration to you, a motivation, just know that you can make it through as well. So let me conclude. It's important to take care of yourself during this difficult time. This may include seeking support from friends and family, seeking therapy, or finding healthy ways to cope with the emotions we are feeling. It's also important to give ourselves permission to grieve and to take the time we need to heal. Grief is a process, and it's important to be patient with ourselves as we navigate. Take the time you need to heal. Take the time to feel what you need to feel. Doesn't make you weak, doesn't make you a bad person. You're just grieving the loss. I hope this video helped you. Share it, like, and just know you can make it through. Thank you for watching this video.